What is up, everybody? In this video, we are going to talk about the complete guide to astrological house systems, history, theory, examples, and visual charts. I was able to create this PDF report with the help of Claude Anthropic and Report Labs. So shout out. And we are going to go into this. We're going to talk about 12 different systems, astrological house systems. And this guide will cover every major house system used throughout the history of Western and Indian astrology, from the ancient Hellenistic whole sign system to modern computational approaches. Each chapter includes a theory overview, worked example, visual chart wheel, and historical context. So we're going to talk about the whole sign system, of course. 2nd century BCE, ancient Greek and Hellenistic, the equal house system. 2nd century CE. Porphyry system, 3rd century CE, Agabitius system, 10th century CE, Regiomontana system, 1490 CE, Placidus system, 1650 CE, Cook birthplace system, 1971 CE, Campanus system, 13th century CE, Morinus system, 1650 CE, Topocentric system, 1961 CE, Meridian axial rotation system, 1900 CE, and a Sripati system, 10th through 12th century CE. So let's get started. We have a lot to go over. So what even are astrological houses? 12 divisions of the horoscope and why they differ. The horoscope wheel is divided into 12 sectors called houses, each governing a different sphere of human life: identity, money, communication, home, creativity, health, relationships, transformation, philosophy, career, community, and hidden matters. Unlike the zodiac signs, which are fixed 30 degrees divisions of the ecliptic tide of the sun's annual path, houses are local divisions anchored to the observer's horizon and meridian at the moment and place of birth. That's why two people born on the same day but in different cities or even hours apart can have entirely different house placements. So the 4 angles are universally agreed upon across whole systems. The ascendant, eastern horizon, which is the cusp of the first house. The midheaven, the highest point of the ecliptic, 10th house. The descendant, western horizon, 7th house. And the Amunculi, lowest ecliptic point, 4th house. Where systems differ is in how they determine the intermediate house cusps. From the 2nd house through the 12th house, over 2,000 years of astrological history, at least a dozen distinct approaches have been developed, each reflecting different mathematical philosophies about space, time, and the heavens. So here are the 12 houses at a glance. First house, which is the ascendant, is the self and body. Natural sign is Aries, and the key themes are identity, appearance, and beginnings. The 2nd house is ascendant, money and values. Taurus, finances, possession, self-worth. 3rd house, cadent, mind and siblings. Gemini, communication, short travel, learning. 4th house, Icena Dira, home and roots. Cancer, family, ancestry, inner foundation. 5th house, succident, creativity. Leo, children, romance, art, pleasure. 6th house, cadent, health and work. Virgo, daily routine, service, wellness. 7th house, descendant, partnership. Libra, marriage, contracts, open enemies. 8th house, succident, transformation. Scorpio, death, sex, shared resources, occult. 9th house, cadent, philosophy. And we're talking about Sagittarius, higher education, travel, religion. The 10th house, midheaven, zenith, career, Capricorn, public life, reputation, authority. 11th, succident, community, Aquarius, friends, groups, hopes, and ideals. In the 12th house, cadent, hidden realm, Pisces, solitude, karma, undoing, and mysticism. So the first system is the whole sign system, ancient Greece, Hellenistic Egypt, 2nd century BCE, through ancient Greek and Hellenistic. Here is how the whole sign system looks. And we have the overview, how it works, worked example, as well as its strengths and weaknesses. So we see the oldest formalized house system, whole sign, or it assigns one entire zodiac sign to each house. the ascendant sign becomes house 1 in its entirety, the next sign becomes house 2, and so on. No cusp calculation is needed. The boundary of every house is simply the 0 degrees of a sign. Find the ascending sign. That sign equals house 1, all 30 degrees. Next sign equals house 2. Continuing around the zodiac, the ascendant degree falls somewhere inside house 1, but is not defined at cusp. If your ascendant is at 17 degrees Scorpio, then Scorpio 0 degrees to 30 degrees equals house 1, and Sagittarius equals house 2, Capricorn equals house 3, Libra equals house 12. So we see the strengths here. Simplest calculation, works at all latitudes including polar regions, restored in modern Hellenistic revival, clean sign house correspondence, and its weaknesses. Is AC degree not a house cusp, ignores time of birth precision, and less nuance at high latitudes. So, notable practitioners and historical context: Ptolemy, Dorotheus of Sidon, Abu Mashar, and modern Hellenistic astrologers. So second is the equal house system. It is Valens Hellenistic tradition, 2nd century CE, highly used through the medieval period. Same style here. Looking at the overview, how it works. Worked example. Equal house divides the ecliptic into 12 equal 30 degree segments beginning from the exact degree of the ascendant. Unlike whole sign, the ASC degree is the first house cusp, giving precise 30 degrees wide houses regardless of latitude. Take the ascendant degree, for example, 17 degrees Scorpio. So house 1 is 17 degrees Scorpio through 17 degrees Sagittarius. House 2, 17 degrees Sagittarius through 17 degrees Capricorn. Each house spans exactly 30 degrees. So we see AC equals 17 degrees Scorpio, H1 cusp, 17 degrees, H2 cusp, and then again, it's going to be 17 degrees for all cusps until we notice that the midheaven rarely falls on the 10th house cusp in the system. And we see the strengths are precise AC as cusp, equal house sizes, works at all latitudes, and popular in UK astrology. However, MC floats may fall in the 9th house, 10th house, or 11th, ignores astronomical MC, and less used in traditional and modern US astrology. So notable practitioners: historical context, Phidias Valens, Ellen Leo, Modern Revival, and UK School of Astrology. So here we see the Porphyry system, Porphyry of Tyre, Neoplatonist philosopher from the 3rd century CE. Looking at the overview, how it works, worked example, and again, strengths and weaknesses. So right off the bat, we notice Porphyry system uses the 4 angles, being the ascendant, Imam Colli, descendant, and midheaven, as fixed house cusps, and it trisects the arcs between them to generate the intermediate houses. It is the earliest known quadrant system and is the conceptual ancestor of Alcabitius, Regiomontanus, and Placidus. Compute the ascendant, midheaven, descendant equals ascendant, adding 180 degrees. We see IC equals the midheaven, adding 180 degrees. And they're going to divide the arc, ascendant, IC, into 3 equal parts, the cusps of the 2nd house and the 3rd house. And divide the Imam Colli, descendant, into 3 5th house, 6th house cusps. Repeat for the other 2 quadrants. And so the worked example here is the AC equals 15 degrees, MC equals 22 degrees, arc AC, IC, the IC equals 22 degrees, span 67 degrees, divide by 3 equals 22.3 degrees each. 2nd house equals 7 degrees, 3rd house equals 29 degrees. The strengths uses actual angles, mathematically elegant for its era, and it works at higher latitudes and places. The weaknesses is intermediate houses unequal and less astronomical precision than the later systems. And the notable practitioners: historical context, Porphyry of Tyre, early Arabic and Byzantine astrologers. Alright, here we're going to go over Alcabitius, Arabic astrologer, 10th century CE. So, Alcabitius divides the diurnal semi-arc, the arc the sun travels, from the ascendant midheaven above the horizon into 3 equal parts, using the celestial equator. The resulting time arcs are projected onto the ecliptic for house cusps. It was dominant in Arabic and medieval European astrology. Compute the RAMC, right ascension of the midheaven, divide the semi-arc of the ascendant by 3 and RA units, project each third back onto the ecliptic using the oblique ascension formula. Houses 1, 4, 7, 10 are always the 4 angles. So, for example, for London, AC equals 10 degrees, the midheaven equals 7 degrees, the nocturnal semi-arc below the horizon gives H2 equals 8 degrees, H3 equals 5 degrees, and the diurnal side, AC midheaven, gives H1, 1 equals 14 degrees, H12 equals 12 degrees. So we see the strengths: use great Arabic and medieval charts, time-based division, historically important, and works reasonably at mid-latitudes. However, it distorts at high latitudes, superseded by Regiomontanus and Placidus in complex manual calculation. Notable practitioners in historical context: Guido Bonatti, medieval Arabic astrologers, and early European universities. Here is the Regiomontanus system. Johannes Müller, German mathematician, astronomer. Alright, so Regiomontanus divides the celestial equator into 12 equal 30 degrees arcs, starting from the intersection of the equator with the eastern horizon. Great circles through the north and south points of the horizon, and each equatorial division are then projected onto the ecliptic to yield house cusps. It was the standard of Renaissance European astrology. Start at the RAMC at 30 degrees increments along the equator. For each point, draw a great circle through the NS horizon points, where that great circle intersects the ecliptic, equals the house cusp. Used extensively for Tycho Brahe's charts and William Willie's Horbury work at the ascendant equals 25 degrees, midheaven equals 18 degrees, London. The 11th house equals 16 degrees, 12th house equals 20 degrees, second house equals 22 degrees, and third house equals 17 degrees. So it's mathematically rigorous for the era, good Horbury tradition used by William Lilly, and distinct from Placidus at extreme latitudes. However, it falls apart above 66 degrees latitude. This is a complex calculation and superseded for natal work by Placidus. Oh yeah, used primarily by William Lilly and his Horbury Astrology, Tycho Brahe, and Renaissance astrologers. So here is System 6, Placidus system. Placidus de Tides, Italian monk and mathematician. It's the most popular modern system. So right off the bat, we see Placidus divides the time it takes the planet to travel from the IC to the horizon, and from the horizon to the MC into 3 equal time segments. The system is rooted in the concept of primary directions, predictive timing. It became the world's most popular house system after Raphael's ephemeris adopted it in the 19th century. Each house cusp is defined as the ecliptic point that completes 1/3 or 2/3 of a semi-arc, day arc, or night arc at that moment. Cusps 11, the 11th house, and 12th house divide the day semi-arc. So second house and third house divide the night semi-arc. Work example here: born in Rome, 42 degrees north, the ascendant equals 0 degrees, midheaven equals 11 degrees, 11th house equals 19 degrees, 12th house equals 9 degrees, second house equals 22 degrees, third house equals 1 degrees, popular for psychological and natal astrology worldwide. Its most widely published tables integrates time-based astrology, basis for primary directions timing, and nuanced psychological profiles. However, it cannot be calculated above 66 degrees north-south. Houses become undefined, distorted houses at high latitudes, and complex calculation. Primarily used virtually all 20th century Western astrologers, Raphael, William publishers. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that right. Alright, birthplace system. So here you see that this system, also called birthplace houses or GOH, Geburtsorthauser, defines house cusps as the ecliptic degrees that were on the ascendant at specific intervals before birth. Computed for the birth latitude, it was promoted as more personal because each cusp depends directly on the geographical birthplace. Determine the midheaven, oblique ascension, work backward inside real time by 1/3 and 2/3 of the semi-arc for each quadrant, and project the resulting RA points through the birth latitude onto the ecliptic to find the 11th house, 12th house, second house, and third house. So here we have the example for birth in Berlin, 52.5 degrees north. ascendant equals 14 degrees, midheaven equals 24 degrees, 12th house equals 6 degrees, 11th house equals 22 degrees, second house equals 18 degrees, third house equals 2 degrees, and this often gives dramatically different 12th house placements than Placidus. So it's locality sensitive, popular in German-speaking countries, and often cited for event astrology accuracy claims. However, cannot be used above 66 degrees latitude, less theoretical justification than Placidus or Regiomontanus, and relatively modern, limited historical track record. We see many German-speaking astrologers, Reinhold Eberton School, and now the Campanus system. Campanus system. Excuse me. So, Italian mathematician and Papel chaplain. So we have an overview how it works. Worked example. So Campanus divides the prime vertical, the great circle through east, zenith, west, and nadir into 12 equal 30 degrees arcs. Great circles through the north and south points of the horizon, passing through each prime vertical division, intersect the ecliptic to define house cusps. It has been favored by Dane Rudar and Iranian astrologers. Trisect each quadrant of the prime vertical, not the equator or ecliptic. Draw great circles from the north-south horizon through each division, project onto the ecliptic. And so for a chart at 40 degrees north, the ascendant equals 5 degrees, midheaven equals 7 degrees, 11th house equals 10 degrees, 12th house equals 8 degrees, second house equals 2 degrees, third house equals 4 degrees. Campanus often places more planets in angular houses than Placidus. And we notice its weaknesses. It's rarely used in mainstream astrology, less traditional footing, and houses are unequal in ecliptic degrees. And its strengths, geometrically elegant, divides 3D space meaningfully, works at higher latitudes than Placidus, and favored in Iranian astrology. Also primarily used by Dane Rudar, Iranian Hamburg School astrologers. Now we're looking at Morina's system. French astrologer physician. Morina's divides the celestial equator into 12 equal arcs of 30 degrees, starting from the RAMC, and projects them directly onto the ecliptic along circles of declination. Parallels. Unusually, it does not use a horizon. It works at any latitude, including the poles. Take the RAMC at 30 degrees intervals along the equator. Project each equatorial point straight onto the ecliptic using circles of equal right ascension, declination circles, no oblique ascension involved. RAMC equals 280 degrees, for example, so 10th house cusp equals ecliptic point at RA 280 degrees, 14 degrees. The 11th house cusp, RA 310 degrees, 11 degrees. 12th house, RA 340 degrees to 8 degrees, used by some astrologers seeking latitude-independent calculation. So we see its weaknesses: historically uncommon, AC rarely falls on the H1 cusp, that's the first house, rejected by most traditional schools. And strengths: it works at all latitudes including poles, pure equatorial division, mathematically simple projection, and no horizon dependency. Primarily used by Jean-Baptiste Morin, small modern following. Alright, on to topocentric system, Argentine astrologers. Alright, so the topocentric system, also called Polish page, was designed as a mathematically refined alternative to Placidus. It approximates Placidus cusps very closely, but uses a simpler trigonometric formula based on the observer's position on Earth's surface rather than its center. So divide the prime vertical at the birthplace into trisections and project these onto the ecliptic via rotation. That accounts for the observer being on the Earth's surface topocentric rather than at the geocenter. Results are typically within 1 degree of Placidus. For example, Buenos Aires, 34 degrees south, the ascendant equals 20 degrees, midheaven equals 9 degrees. Topocentric, 11th house equals 14 degrees, 12th house equals 17 degrees, nearly identical to Placidus. For most latitudes, the differences appear mainly at latitudes above 55 degrees. The strengths are close to Placidus, simpler formula, works at more latitudes, good for research comparisons with Placidus. However, it's very similar to Placidus, limited reason to prefer, little historical tradition, and rarely available in older software. Primarily used by Polish, Page, some Latin American astrologers. 11th system, meridian, axial rotation system. Alright, so we noticed that the meridian system, also axial rotation, divides the celestial equator into 12 equal 30-degree segments starting from the RAMC that projects them onto the ecliptic using the same method as equal houses, but it is anchored to the midheaven rather than the ascendant. So house 10 cusp equals the midheaven exactly. Compute the midheaven degree. House 10 cusp equals the midheaven at 30 degrees in RA for each subsequent cusp and project onto the ecliptic. House 1 cusp equals the ascendant in the system. So it's pretty much the same thing. And then, for example, the midheaven equals 15 degrees, so 10th house equals 15 degrees. The 11th house equals 15 degrees, the 12th house equals 15 degrees, the first house equals 15 degrees, and the second house equals 15 degrees. The ascendant might fall at, for example, 20 degrees inside the first house, but not on its cusp. Okay? So, its weakness is the ascendant is not a house cusp, less traditional support, and rarely used outside specialized practitioners. Strengths midheaven always exactly on the 10th house cusp. Simple calculation, works at all latitudes, and is good for career public focus. Also primarily used by David Cope, Zuriel, Don Neuralman, and modern niche practitioners. Now we're looking at the System 12, the Shripati system, Indian Jyotish mathematician astrologer. And we're also going to look at a comparison and selection guide. So we notice that Shripati system is the primary quadrant house. Holy shit. Shripati system is the primary quadrant house system of Jyotish. Vedic astrology. Like Porphyry, it trisects the ecliptic arcs between the four angles, but it is calculated using a sidereal zodiac, like Hiri Ayanamsa, placing it roughly 23 through 24 degrees earlier than tropical systems, still widely used in Indian astrology today. So how it works, using sidereal positions, identify the angles, ascendant, midheaven, descendant, Imam Coli, trisect the arc between each pair of angles, same as Porphyry, apply Lahiri Ayanamsa correction. To convert from tropical, houses are often overlaid with the whole sign system. And we see, for example, tropical ascendant equals 20 degrees, sidereal ascendant equals 27 degrees, subtract 23 degrees, midheaven equals 18 degrees, sidereal midheaven equals 25 degrees, and trisect sidereal arcs, second house, third house, 11th house, 12th house cusps. Its weakness is rarely used outside Indian tradition, Ayanamsa debate which correction and conflicts with Western tropical systems. However, used in Jyotish Vedic tradition, sidereal accuracy claim, thousands of years of Indian astrological practice and often combined with whole sign overlays, primarily used by Shripati Mishra traditional Jyotishis throughout South Asia. And now here's a comparison and selection guide. Which house system is the right for your practice? No single house system is universally quote-unquote correct. Each represents a different philosophical and mathematical approach to dividing the sky. The right choice depends on your astrological tradition, the type of astrology you practice, and your birth latitude. So here we see the system from whole sign, as well as era, best latitude, tradition, primary use. So whole sign is ancient, best latitude is all, Hellenistic, modern, natal, predictive. Equal house, Hellenistic, all, UK Western, natal. Porphyry, 3rd century, most, medieval, natal horary. Alcabitius, 10th century, less than 60 degrees, Arabic medieval, natal horary. Regiomontanus, 15th century, less than 66 degrees, Renaissance, horary lily. Placidus, 17th century, less than 66 degrees, modern Western, natal most popular. Koch, 20th century, less than 66 degrees, German, natal. Campanus, 13th century, less than 75 degrees, Uranian, natal Uranian. Morinus, 17th century, all, specialty, natal. Topocentric, 20th century, less than 70 degrees, Latin American, natal. Meridian, 20th century, all, specialty, natal career. And Shripati, 10th through 12th century, all, Vedic Jyotish, natal Indian. Alright. So this is practical recommendations by practice type. So So if you practice and consider using. So new to astrology, if you're learning, use whole sign. It's the simplest, most forgiving, no undefined houses. Born above 60 degrees latitude, whole sign equal house, Morinus, or meridian. Horary astrology, Virgin Montana's Lily tradition or Alcapicius. Psychological natal astrology, Placidus mainstream or Cope German school. Uranian Hamburg school, Campanus or meridian. Vedic Jyotish tradition, Shipati with whole sign overlay, sidereal zodiac. Hellenistic traditional revival, whole sign or eagle house. And research comparison, run Placidus and whole sign side by side. Hope you learned something from this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Piscean out.